Good afternoon. It's Betty Shan again. I'm glad you've joined me, and I'm glad for the new members that have joined, and I'm thankful for everybody that's watching. And I'm just going to talk to you today, and uh, don't have anything really planned. We're just going to see where it heads out, and we may have to erase this a half a dozen times, but we're going to try to get something on here. But I got to studying today, this being Sunday, and we went to church this morning and we went to church tonight. And I got to studying more about some of my Sunday school kids and different things that's happened over the several years that I've taught Sunday school and children's church and what have you. And I thought, well, I'll give them a little more of that. Uh, I know that we have what we call our Sunday school quarterlies that we used, and what it is, they run 4 months at a time and you get three a year. And when you teach the lessons for a year, it goes back and kind of repeats the lessons again. And I had one of the main lessons in the children's, I'm talking about the younger children's Sunday school book, was the first miracle that Jesus performed of turning water into wine. And I know that any of you that have been in church at all, you've heard the story about Jesus turning the water into wine at the wedding. Okay, I was teaching that class that had to have that every year, that have it. And I thought, my word, we've turned enough water into wine, and I wanted to make it more interesting, so I went and got me a big old gallon jar, and I run masking tape around the bottom of the jar where you couldn't see what was exactly in the bottom of the jar. And I took it to Sunday school and I put Kool-Aid down in it. And I took it to Sunday school. Of course, I was prepared. I took cups and ice and cookies and stuff to go with it, when I got through with the lesson. But I'll never forget taking that old gallon jar and setting it on a table in front of them. And I said, we started the lesson, and I had a picture, and it was clear. And I told them, I said, I want some of you kids to go and fill this pitcher up with water. And I said, that's what Jesus did. He told them the people to go get water and put in the pitcher. So we're going to put water in the pitcher. So they went and they got that pitcher full of water and they brought it back in there. And I said, now take that pitcher and pour that water into that gallon jar sitting there. And they looked at me real funny, but somebody took it and they poured it in there, and it started coming up, and it was grape Kool-Aid. And their eyes, some of them kids' eyes, I'll never forget the expression on their face when they seen that water turn to grape Kool-Aid. Anyway, it made an impression on them, and they left that Sunday school class so excited, running out of there, said, Sister Betty just turned water into wine. Of course, I explained it to them, but they still had to go tell everybody I turned water into wine. But we had our Kool-Aid and cookies and had a fine day that Sunday. But, it takes a little effort sometimes to excite our children about things that they've heard over and over and over again. You can find little things you can do to raise their excitement in Sunday school, and that's one of the reasons I like to teach. I didn't like to teach just to read from a book. I like to teach them lessons and things that they have still never forgot. And then one time I had a little doll, and I put hearts down on the inside of the little doll's dress, and I hooked them to a string, and I told them the story about a little girl that was being so naughty. She was being a naughty little girl, and she wasn't minding her parents. And I pulled one of them strings out, and it had a black heart. I said, look at her heart. She's got a black heart because she's being ugly, and she's not minding and doing what she's supposed to do. And of course, I slipped that heart back down in there, and they got so quiet and so attentive. And then I told them, I said, they went to church and they heard the preacher preaching, and they felt sorry for what they had done, and they prayed about it. And I said, let's check her heart and see what happened. And I pulled that string out, and her heart was just as red as it could be. And their eyes got real big. Even the pastor's little girl went to him and told him, said, Daddy, said, Sister Shan turned that doll's heart from black to red. Said she repented and said God didn't do it. Sister Betty done it, is what what she told him. But anyway, there's a lot of things you can do to get a child's interest, but sometimes we have to work at it. But I enjoyed teaching Sunday school classes, and but when they got to the place that they wanted me to teach children's church, now we had Sunday school classes, but sometimes teachers wouldn't show up, or teachers were out sick, or something would happen, and sometimes they'd put them in a bigger room, and they called it children's church. Now, when I was teaching the little kids, that was real well and fine, but when I had all ages in there, up to usually by the age of 12, they went out to be with the parents when we had children's church. But anyway, I remember several times that I had to teach children's church, and I remember one occasion where we had children's church, and they put all the children in this room, and I was supposed to keep them entertained and do things with them during Sunday school. And while the pastor was teaching his lesson, I was supposed to be back there teaching the children's lesson. Well, we're Pentecostal, and that first hour went by real well. I had a lesson ready for them, so I taught them the lesson. Then the second hour started. I had Kool-Aid and cookies. I fed them that. Then the next hour started, and I started singing with them, and I think we sang every song we ever knew. We sang When We All Pulled Together, and we climb up Sunshine Mountain, and We're in the Lord's Army, and a bunch more of them. We sang them all. But the preacher still kept preaching. So I told him, I said, well, let's just all go outside. And I had a ball there. And I said, let's go outside and we'll play some games with the ball. So I took them outside to play games with the ball. And when I did, we played games until they dismissed the service, but it seemed like it just drug on and on and on. And I done everything I knew to do to keep them kids entertained. And of course, I was the only teacher. There wasn't any other teachers in there. So that night we went back to church to go to church, and one of the little boys run up to me and said, Sister Shan, said, my daddy told me that if all you're going to do is take us outside to play games, that I have to sit in the auditorium. And I thought that hurt my feelings so bad, because I had taught a lesson. I had done everything I knew to do to entertain that big bunch of kids. And then a parent would tell their child, if you're just going to play games, you'll sit in the auditorium with me. So the next Sunday I got to thinking about it, and I went ahead and I taught the lesson. They asked me to do it again, and I taught the lesson. I done everything I knew to do, and I just went over and opened up the door, and I said, now all of you go back to your parents and sit down. And they all went in. Of course, that kind of disturbed the service. But I thought, well, if I can't please them one way, I've got to try to please them another. So I just sent the children back in there. Well, I wasn't asked to do that anymore. They kind of cut the services short where they wouldn't be so long. But, kids remember things that happen. I'm just thinking about different ones that's come up to me, and here I am now. I'm 76 years old, and some of my Sunday school children are 58 years old that I have taught in Sunday school. But it's such a blessing to you to have taught them and see them grow and see them working with their children and trying to raise their children right. And we hope that we've had some kind of impression on their life, that they will live for the Lord, and that they'll be good, if nothing else, that they'll make good citizens and good people. And that's the main thing. We want to see them live a good and full and happy life. So keep your chin up, smile, and go for the Lord.